Postlude. Aftermath. Bella pranced off to the bathroom, humming some unrecognizable tune. The musical ended with a hair-raising crunch of flesh against wood, and a grunted, "Oh!" Her toes against the doorframe, I guessed. She didn't make a sound for an infuriating second, and I had reached for the doorknob when I heard her laugh. Not a chuckle, but a loud, full-belly laugh that grew when she turned on the water. The last of her laughter was punctuated by a very unladylike, yet completely uninhibited snort. As tangible as a hug, her happiness brought an easy smile to my lips. Not even the guilt of having robbed her of such a simple pleasure could extinguish the corresponding chuckle fighting its way out of my chest. "If only," she said with one final guffaw. The humming resumed, and I was left to occupy myself in her vacant room. No music, no books, no photos. Her life had been as empty as mine had. I easily recalled a list of missing CDs, and made plans to replace them when the opportunity presented itself. But there was one CD left. I knelt next to the bed, and lifted the floorboard hiding Bella's missing possessions. The amount of dust blanketing the small stack was surprisingly thin and easily blown away. Unable to bring myself to look at the photos, which detailed my misguided separation from Bella, I set the stack on her desk, placing the unlabeled CD on top. Would she listen to it, or did it hold frightening memories for her now? A different woman's words interrupted my regretful ponderings.
"Edward, there's a small herd eating the hydrangeas 2 doors down. I'll drive them past you into the forest."
Esme's thoughts rang nearly as melodically as her voice over the gargling spray of Bella's shower.
"When was the last time you hunted?"
The vacuous ache in my stomach answered her. Too long. I couldn't go, though. Bella was expecting me to stay.
"Don't make me ground you,"
Esme added, though I knew she'd never follow through on her threat. She had an accomplice who would, though. My mother's concern was joined by another telepathic scolding.
"If you don't feed, things are going to get ugly at school today, Edward."
Alice's warning came with a bloody image of Mike Newton's inside-out face. Rubbing my knuckles fondly, I savored the possibility of taking out my self-loathing on the ignorant human. But a single, relaxed exhalation from the bathroom eased my violent fantasy. In one contented breath, Bella reasserted herself as the center of my being, reminding me how my polluted spirit only burdened hers. Here I was, contemplating murder, when I was supposed to be trying to re-earn her trust. I took a painful step toward the window, forcing myself to do the responsible thing. A smattering of hoofbeats and crackling branches ripped through the trees, kindling the thirsty burn I had ignored for so long. It wouldn't take long to quench the fire, but there were other threats to Bella's safety. I couldn't leave her unprotected.
"You'll be back before she's finished,"
Alice promised, seeing Newton's reprieve in the light of my tenuous decision.
"I'll keep watch over her. Go."
Leaping to the ground, I couldn't ignore the ripping strings that regret lashed into me as I ran. Of all the reasons to apologize for the hideous creature I was, it was the necessity of having to leave Bella for such a trivial task that gnawed at me. Instead of dwelling on my many, many shortcomings, I set my sights on what could only be described as fast food running ahead of me. I'd intended to make quick work of my meal, but the earthy scent of blood and the deep timpani of the buck's fear-driven pulse loosed my long-imprisoned predatory nature. When the bobbing midnight tail came into view, I threw off the facade of humanity and dropped into a crouch. Freed of all restraint, I pawed at the dirt, before driving like a rabid dog, face first into the mass of fur. Torrid, tasteless gulps ended the buck's life, while its hooves skittered uselessly across the mossy ground. Sucking the last drops of heated goodness from its lifeless carcass, I threw it aside. The few pints only whetted my desiccated appetite. A frustrated rumble rolled from my impatient stomach and emerged as a gnarled bellow. More. I pointed my nose toward the clouds and filled my lungs with the damp air. Like a beacon, another bloody scent called to me. My feet automatically answered the invitation.
"This way,"
a female voice whispered, drawing another jealous growl from my throat. I searched the forest around me for the other hunter. No one was going to steal my prey. I glimpsed the other predator sneaking through the trees, corralling the remaining deer. Seeing me, she turned on her heels and ran, her auburn hair flying behind her.
"These are for you, Edward."
Seizing my advantage, I jumped from one animal to the next, snapping their necks and dragging them into a heap next to a huge cedar. Keeping an eye out for my competitor's return, I feasted, draining the bodies one by one. It wasn't until the last was empty and the sanguineous warmth had reached my fingertips that I found sanity again. Esme, the woman I had wrongly seen as a threat, stepped slowly into the clearing, to find me hovering over the macabre pile like a child hoarding his favorite toys. She stopped.
"Alice said there was another herd converging on the river. Would you like me to—"
"No," I interrupted, regaining my composure. "No, Esme, that won't be necessary." Embarrassed at my ridiculously messy manners, I straightened up and removed my bloody and torn shirt. Blood didn't cling to my impermeable skin, and it only took a few swipes to eradicate the last traces of my savage meal.
"Satisfying?"
Esme asked, still evaluating my mental stability. I ran my hand through my hair. "Yes, thanks, Mom." The sour taste of the herbivores lingered on my tongue, but the fire in my throat had been reduced to a manageable simmer. I smiled, proving that the monster in me had been tamed. The glut of blood brought me peace, a stranger whose return I welcomed.
"My pleasure."
Her anxiety evaporated, and she brushed my shoulder when she walked to the huge cedar. Wrapping her arms around the trunk, she effortlessly uprooted it. I tossed the bodies beneath, and she resettled the tree, realigning the broken roots and crushing the evidence of my feasting. Taking my arm, she led me through the forest.
"It's good to see you get your color back,"
she thought. I lifted her hand, comparing my bleached skin to hers with a raised eyebrow.
"Your eyes,"
she retorted. She almost pushed me away in fun, but instead squeezed my hand tighter.
"I'm so glad you're home."
"Mom," I started, but found myself at a loss for words. Her unconditional love in the face of everything I had done overwhelmed me. We stopped, and she turned to me.
"I know."
With shining eyes, she showed me her forgiveness and acceptance, promising silently that she'd always be there for me.
"And he knows, too."
I could see in her mind the tormented state in which I had left Carlyle when I had rushed Bella away. He hadn't accompanied Esme, for fear that his presence would only infuriate me. The things I said. Please tell him I regret my outburst. It was inexcusable.
"No, not inexcusable. Understandable. We've all felt as you did at one time or another. For our mates, and even for Bella."
Like a photograph, She showed me a still portrait of Bella and me dressed in our prom best. The walking cast seemed to grow in size as Esme remembered it.
He was so proud of you for saving her. You did the one thing you swore you'd never do, and in that moment of sacrifice, gave her the life she deserved. Can you see he's trying to do exactly the same thing?
While I could see the dichotomy Carlyle struggled with, what he was sacrificing wasn't as clear. Dignity? Principles? Esme tried again, desperate for me to understand and forgive.
Carlyle has been second-guessing all his decisions regarding you ever since you said goodbye on that logging road. Decisions going all the way back to when he first met you. You know that self-determination is something he holds as highly as the sanctity of human life. You may have been lingering on the edges of death, but he knows he robbed you of the right to choose when he changed you, and he's been trying to rectify that error ever since.
There's no need. He knows I don't hold him responsible. For a while I did, though, and Esme sighed, remembering how I had spit in Carlyle's face the night I had left to embrace what I believed he had forced upon me. "You made me this way, and I'm not going to fight the bloodlust any longer," I had screamed. Then, as now, she didn't offer any rebuke.
Perhaps. But it's that paradox. Bella's right to choose versus her right to live and die. It's called his judgment into question.
Carlyle's moral compass seemed to point pretty clearly in one direction just hours ago. I doubted that Bella was the only one affecting his decision-making process, though my influence had clearly diminished. One other opinion weighed heavily on the scale of Carlyle's conscience. "Alice?"
"Has nothing to do with the dilemma facing both you and him,"
Esme said firmly. She remembered Carlyle and Alice arguing the dependability of her visions on many occasions, and his assertion that the smallest change could affect the strongest of her visions.
"Edward, we don't need a preview of the future to see that you and Bella are two sides of the same being, that you must be together."
She paused, then locked her sunflower eyes on mine.
"The question is, who is to choose whether you and Bella are joined by immortality or by death?"
I rolled my rag of a shirt around in my hands, slowly ripping it to shreds, just as her concise evaluation of our impasse tore at my insides. Carlyle said it was between Bella and me.
"Yes, and we've seen how well that's worked out."
Her bluntness hit me like a ton of bricks.
"I'm sorry, Edward. I don't mean to be petty, but you've tried to make decisions for her. Putting her humanity above her ability to decide her own path has already cost both of you."
While Esme would accept Bella as a daughter in any case, she worried about what kind of life I'd have, constantly trying to protect my breakable, infectable, danger-attracting mate. I rubbed my eyes, hearing Bella's observation ring through my mental ears.
"You said amazing. Carlyle was right." "Your father isn't punishing you,"
Esme said softly.
"He's only trying to do what's right, for you and for Bella. We only want you to be happy."
Would you believe me if I said I knew that? I looked into my mother's eyes, resolute.
"There's hope for you after all,"
Bella had said. Was there a happy ending in store for us? Far from dazzled, Esme smiled, but only with her lips.
"Yes, I believe you. It's your father you have to convince."
That look, the glare that only a mother can give her child, told me I wouldn't be completely off the hook until I had apologized to him. "I'll talk to him."
"I'll hold you to that."
She gave me a quick peck on the cheek and pulled me forward. The closer we got to the slowly waking neighborhood, the harder it was for me to maintain a steady pace. Like it was electrically charged, my bare skin tingled, anticipating Bella's touch. Esme laughed when I sped up. Alice met us at a fallen log only yards from the house. She didn't look up as we approached. She was concentrating hard on an image of our garage. The ghostly image of a 911 appeared and then vanished in one of the unoccupied spaces.
"Are you toying with my car?"
she asked. I considered ordering a car in exchange for having Alice replace Bella's CD collection, and the vision became solid. No, that was too trivial. The car vanished, and Alice groaned. With a laugh, I felt more and more natural. I tweaked her ear. "Sorry, sis." Shoving me in return, she said,
"You look pretty lively for an undead guy."
She pursed her lips, trying to hide her smile.
"Thanks, Emmett."
Imitating her, I stuck my tongue out before accepting a bundle of clothes she offered.
"The good news is that you won't be committing any murder today. Rose especially will be pleased to hear that. You know she hates leaving on the run."
Unable to stay still, Alice rocked back and forth.
"Charlie's going to forgive me this afternoon."
"Really? Will he forgive Bella, too?" I didn't bother to ask about me. The man should hate me.
"Oh, he's already forgiven her. But she's going to have to spend a lot more time at home from now on."
I already guessed that. Esme released me and pointed at Alice and then toward the house.
"We should go. Sounds like Bella's almost finished."
We all heard the water cease and the zing of the shower curtain.
"You know Charlie loves her as much as you do, Edward, and is trying to do what's best for her."
For a split second, she worried for Charlie's safety. "I know. I just wish she didn't have to suffer for my mistakes."
"Her suffering's finally over, now that you're back together,"
Alice said.
"Meet you around the corner after Bella leaves."
She sped away, trying to deduce what actions would guarantee the early delivery of her new car.
"But one last thing."
Esme caught my hand, laying her palm over mine.
"Don't lose this one,"
she growled, placing a new cell phone in my open hand. She sounded just like every other human parent of an absent-minded teen.
"Have a good day,"
she added, before following Alice. Faster than Superman could say kryptonite, I changed out of my soiled clothes. I was lounging on Bella's rocking chair by the time she opened her bedroom door. The scent of her damp hair and skin brought a new hunger to life, and I rose, collecting her in my arms as the door clicked shut. She'd selected my favorite blue blouse, demonstrating again how much she welcomed my presence. "Good morning," she said, a giggle lurking behind her greeting. "Indeed," I murmured against her fiery lips. Her heart pounded out a staccato rhythm that skipped and jumped as we kissed. Her lips, so luscious, pressed against mine, frolicking, teasing, begging. Barely containing my longing, I smoothed her hair over her ear, letting my lips trail away from her mouth and across her jaw. "Your skin is indescribable," I said, my lips never leaving Bella's delicate face. Easing her head back, I found her throat, the source of her ecstasy-inducing flavor, and gently traced her fluttering coarted with the tip of my nose. Her fingers explored my face, velvet caresses over my unyielding shell. The fire didn't gather in my throat, but lower, as I kissed the particularly delicate spot below her ear. She gasped, her high-pitched inhalation as enticing as her scent. She grabbed at my shirt when my lips dipped lower, to her neck, her shoulder.
"Edward,"
she breathed, the word warming my ear before dancing through my hair. Charlie's clomping boots brought our embrace to an end, just as Bella began to test my cardinal limits. "You finished in the bathroom?" came from behind the door. I barely stifled my laugh. With a nearly inaudible and very guilty,
Yes, it's all yours."
Bella loosened her grip on me and poked her chin at the closet. I shook my head. Charlie had no intention of coming into her room. He was saving his next attempt at parenting for more neutral territory. The bathroom door creaked shut, and I smiled. Bella's lips curled up too, but as she stared into my eyes, hers widened with fear. With a halting breath, she brought a finger to my temple.
"Your eyes,"
she whispered. My eyes. Of course she had noticed the vivid change in my irises. The deer were decimating Mrs. Foley's flowers. Her sudden terror hit me like a sucker punch, stealing the ability to breathe. "What's wrong?" Her lip trembling, she let her gaze drop lower, to my clean white shirt.
"Oh, of course."
Shocked and confused by her reaction, I scrambled to provide some kind of reassurance and bring a smile back to her face. "You were never alone. Alice was just outside. She and Esme brought the clothes. We haven't found any trace of anyone around your house." Setting her mouth, Bella took a deep breath through the nose. She turned her pale face away and laid her cheek against my chest. Whatever was troubling her, she was intent on hiding it.
"That was really nice of them,"
she finally said, her breathing slow and deliberate.
"I didn't even know you were gone,"
she murmured. The ache in her voice cut through the thin fabric and titanium skin to pierce my newly found heart. It wasn't danger that troubled her. It was another poor decision on my part. I had done it again. I'd left her. Though only for a moment, she had seen my absence as another betrayal, another abandonment. I held her as tightly as I dared, pressing my lips into her hair. "I'm sorry, Bella. I thought if I went while—"
No, it's okay."
She lifted her face to mine, trying to convince me with a stiff smile that I hadn't rubbed salt in her open wound.
"I'm sorry,"
she said with a little more conviction. She refused to lay the blame where it belonged. "I shouldn't have left." Bella shook her head.
"Don't be ridiculous. You have to eat. It's absurd to expect you to be my shadow. You can go home. You should go home. I'm sure your family misses you too." She fingered the hair over my ear and took a deep breath. "It's not like you'd join me in the shower."
Finally a genuine smirk lit her face, and I forced an eye roll. She was trying to make light of my abuse of her trust. Would I ever learn? "I won't do it again." I didn't know how I'd manage it, but I'd find a way to stay near her, always. There had to be some sort of animal blood I could tap, an under-the-table deal I could make with the slaughterhouse to have it shipped. Bella laughed out loud at my grimace, then cupped my cheek with her warm hand. Coherent thought took flight, and for once I was thankful my heart was still. The way water enhanced her fragrance would be enough to send it rocketing out of control, let alone the thought of seeing the drops dance over her bare skin.
"I'm just happy you're here now," she said. "I'm looking forward to things getting back to normal."
Normal, as if the word could ever apply to us. But I'd try to be anything for her, regardless. Would it have been better if I'd told you I was stepping out? The word leaving was officially banished from my vocabulary. Her eyebrows crept together.
Probably not, this time. I don't know why it bothered me so much. You've always gone home to change in the morning. I just have to get used to the routine again, she said.
Her sigh wasn't one of irritation, more one of contentment. Routine. I like that, I whispered. But I'll let you know next time, all right? I doubted I'd be able to leave if she even expressed a hint of distress, though.
Okay.
We stood together, not talking, not kissing, just together, until Charlie finished up. With another sharp rap, he invited Bella down to eat. She released me and reached for the door with a careful smile.
See? I'll be fine.
I caught her hand. I'll stay here. Charlie's ready to go another round with you. Chief Swan had formulated his punishment and was ready to dole it out in no uncertain terms.
No, that's not necessary. I can handle him.
With a big swallow, she forced out the next words.
I'll meet you at school, okay?
In a blur, I had her face cradled in my hands. Are you sure? Her breathing stopped. Bella? She coughed and blinked furiously.
Yes, I'm sure.
She kissed me quickly, then opened the door.
Nice try, though.
I won't be far, I promised for the second time in as many days. I'd never be far away again,